Oh, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, how you doing? How's your mama? How's your family? I'm doing great. We got why Ian Garry might be the answer to Shavkat Rakhmonov. We got MMA Shay, and yeah, let's see what he got. Later on today, my card predictions are going to drop. This video is probably coming out around 12. I'll drop the card predictions around 3. So, kick your feet. I'm going to react like only I could do. Let's see what MMA Shay thinks about Ian Garry versus Shavkat Rakhmonov.
So ever since Belal Muhammad went running scared from Shavkat Rakhmonov, Ian Garry, of all people, have stepped up to take his place. Now, those confused by my prior comments will be surprised to learn that I'm actually, outside of YouTube, I'm an amateur podiatrist. I mean, honestly, that's where my passions typically lie, outside.
He's trolling, right?
Of fights and whatnot, and I've done extensive research. I am someone who's just very well versed in this field, and look, let me tell you, nothing about this is adding up to me. I see a lot of inconsistencies. I see a lot of things that, just based on claims made by Belal Muhammad's camp, none of this is adding up. In my mind, Belal Muhammad does not want to fight Shavkat. I made an entire video a little while back talking about how Shavkat does pose some very, very scary propositions.
I haven't watched that video, and I don't think Belal stuck in Shavkat. I actually was going to pick Belal to beat Shavkat. But that fight might still happen one day, so I'll save the breakdown for that.
To somebody with the style of Belal Muhammad. So to me, it's very clear Belal is hoping somebody can beat Shavkat so he gets an easier initial title defense. And look, Ian Garry might just be that guy. Honestly, Ian Garry might just be the guy to beat Shavkat. Now, again, most people are of the mind that Ian Garry probably doesn't stand the chance. They just think
I'm not of that mindset. I feel like that Ian Garry can't beat Shavkat Rakhmonov. I think this is going to be a much more competitive fight than a lot of people think. I also think we're going to get a 25-minute war. I obviously two different fighters, two different styles, but I do think this fight could be similar to Israel Adesanya versus Kevin Gastelum. Back and forth, man. I can see one fan base screaming robbery. It's going to be close. 48-47 type of fight is how I see it, to be honest. I think Ian Garry poses a lot of threats to Shavkat Rakhmonov as far as his speed, precision, being able to stay on his bike, walking him onto shots, being able to match the length. So Shavkat can't really just keep him on the outside. We know Shavkat's a guy who likes to come forward, likes to initiate the clinch. Will he be able to just come forward on an Ian Garry? We'll see.
Shavkat is too gnarly,
Well, he's going to come forward regardless. It doesn't matter if he can or he can't. He can. He's going to come forward, but will he just be eating shots in the process?
Primal, which I get it. I mean, this guy legitimately hunts wildebeest in the forest with nothing but his bare hands and a knife. He slaughters them, cooks them over a fire, and then sleeps on a bed entirely made of leaves. Now, again, I have always gone on record to say I would not fight somebody like this. All right, this is clearly a different kind of human than I am. This is a kind of human that just doesn't give a fuck. You know what I mean? And I understand. Yeah, I am also equally as scared as Shavkat. But all those things I just mentioned about him, in terms of putting that into a mixed martial arts context, I guess it's a little bit irrelevant. All right, just a little bit. But to me, the best aspect of Shavkat's game is his top pressure once he takes you down.
I agree.
I think he does a lot of things.
He just struggles to get fights down there efficiently, but his top pressure, his BJJ, is just out of this world.
As well, but from what I've seen of him, that one specific skill to me is his absolute best. He just gives you no space to operate. He's always chest to chest on you, skin to skin. He's completely draped over you, covering you. And again, there's nothing you can do to stop it because he's not giving you any space.
Pause, gang. Come on, man. What is you doing?
To work. I mean, there's no space to grab an underhook. There's no space to cause a sweep. He is just 100% skin to skin with you. And it is a terrifying proposition that I'm sure a lot of people don't want to think about. I think about it pretty regularly, but that's just because as somebody who grapples, it's something that I like to ponder and try to learn about how to and like in terms of like purely jujitsu, of course. And speaking of jujitsu, of course, Shavkat does have very good submissions. He's got a good guillotine, good rear naked choke. He's always hunting for darces, which that just makes his top pressure that much more scary, because when you're that close to someone, when you're putting that kind of pressure on them, as soon as they turtle, as soon as they try to give up anything to stand back up, that's when the submissions really start opening up. So to me, again, the number one scary thing about Shavkat is that top pressure once he takes you down. He's just so dangerous. But this does lead us into a deficiency I think is there in Shavkat's game. And I think what the deficiency comes down to is Shavkat is not a super strong wrestler. Now, of course, he is a very good grappler. But when you're wearing a gi jacket, which is what you wear in Sambo, it's going to be really hard to shoot traditional singles and doubles because you're grabbing the person's clothing. I mean, good luck shooting a double leg while I'm holding on to you. I'm just going to stiff arm you as soon as you try to shoot. When you typically watch a Sambo match, what you're going to see is a lot more judo-based throws and trips, because when you're grabbing a person's jacket, when you're grabbing their clothing, you can manipulate, you can off-balance them, and that's what opens up those throws and those foot sweeps. And that is clearly what Shavkat specializes in. But take that gi jacket away, and now you're essentially doing Greco-Roman wrestling, which is just a lot harder to pull off. I mean, it was not easy for him to take down Stephen Thompson. I mean, it was not easy. He spent the entire first round pushing him up against the fence. Couldn't really get close on any takedowns. Second round, the exact same.
This is a position that if Shavkat gets this position, I could see almost Ian Garry. We're going to see what kind of work he's putting in with Charles Oliveira, Damian Maia, and Gilbert Burns. Because this isn't necessarily jiu-jitsu. It's just the clinch game. But those guys are great in the clinch as well. But are also almost a bit submissive in this position, to where Ian Garry may solely focus on, let's not get taken down here, instead of, okay, let's dig underhooks. Let's maneuver our way up out of this position, if you see what I'm saying. And this whole time, this is still in minutes here. This is still in minutes, wearing down on the gas tank, making your bike slower, slowly breaking your bike chain. And Ian Garry is going to have to stay on that bike, right, in this fight, and really be precise and have a clean body of work to beat Shavkat Rakhmonov.
Thing just shoves him up against the fence. Eventually, he does end up picking up a single leg to finally get him down. So he's capable of using those kinds of takedowns. It's just not his specialty. That's not his go-to. But again, as I mentioned earlier, though, once he took him down, that is where Shavkat's game really opened up. I mean, Wonderboy had never been subbed before, but this top pressure, it's just different. It's just unholy. I mean, this is nightmarish right here. This is nightmarish. But this is even similar when you look at Team Khabib, also coming from Sambo. Takedowns out in the open are not these guys' specialties. I mean, it's just not. Of course, they have worked really hard to build their wrestling up to a decent level, but they're not going to specialize on that area like someone who actually comes from a pure wrestling background. And when you go back and you look at Shavkat's past fights, there have been tons of moments he's searching for these clinch takedowns. He's picking these guys up and jostling them and turning them and spinning them and, getting deep on these clinches. But he wasn't able to finish it because, again, without that gi jacket, you're doing great.
Like, trying to do all that, he's not taking Ian Garry down. That's not going to get Ian Garry to the ground. I mean, it could. He could catch him off balance, but that, more likely than not, you're not going to get Ian Garry to the ground like that. Maybe you can maneuver him and take his back in a situation like that, and then that's trouble. But as far as getting him down to the ground in that way with the throws and things of that nature, I just don't think it's going to be well. And I'm sure Ian Garry's also working on his scrambling very, very well. Probably scrambling some beautiful eggs over and over again. Also, let's cue the video.
What's going on, man? We on a video. Yeah, we out here, baby. We out here, baby.
Greco-Roman wrestling, and it's just simply a lot harder to pull off. And it was the same thing in the Alex Oliveira fight. Shavkat was trying to work in the clinch, was never able to get any takedowns, though he did end up jumping guillotine and finishing it, of course, because his submissions are good. And the Neil Magny fight, I mean, Neil Magny gave him the clinch takedown because for the life of me, I don't know what Neil Magny was going for, trying to get a figure four around one of Shavkat's legs here. I mean, that's just kind of killing your balance. So, again, I don't know what he was thinking there. But, again, point still stands. And then you look at Ian Garry, and Ian Garry, for one, really surprised me in the Michael Venom Page fight. Of course, he was outclassed on the feet. Everybody is by MVP. That style is just too weird. But, you know, Joe Rogan and Daniel Cormier, during the Ian Garry MVP fight, they kept trying to insinuate that Michael Venom Page was making all of these horrible mistakes, that Michael Venom Page was, I believe they used the words, very inexperienced in the grappling. They were saying, he just know.
I can't really remember specifically. I haven't rewatched the fight because, I mean, that fight doesn't really help me break down the Shavkat and Ian Garry fight, if you ask me. But he was making some key mistakes.
They were basically trying to insinuate that was the first time he had ever touched a mat in his life, and that's
because MVP has won grappling matches. You know, MVP can grapple.
It's ridiculous.
It's just not a strong suit. But he's not a complete fish out of water.
As per usual, I mean, Michael Venom Page just beat Carlos Condit at Polaris in a grappling match. So what Ian Garry pulled off against him was extremely impressive. I mean, it was
Carlos Condit, but
just Ian's head positioning here once he got MVP down. He was forcing him to turtle. He wasn't giving him any opportunity
he only
to grab
him one. He only gave him one way to go. With this position, you only have one way to go, and that's you giving me your back.
Underhook, and therefore he had to give up his back, and Ian was ready to slap that body triangle on as soon.
Whoa, ads. Another thing though, Ian Garry's making key mistakes too. He's trying to cinch in the rear naked choke. Why not just go palm to palm and crank it? You know what I'm saying? Like, Ian Garry should have had a rear naked choke in that fight. It should have been a finish, and we should have been talking about that fight much differently than we are now.
As soon as he got the opportunity. Now, though, of course, none of this is to say that Ian Garry is going to be able to defend against Shavkat on the ground. You know, Ian Garry's a very small welterweight, and like I said, that top pressure from Shavkat is fierce. That is going to be, in my mind, one of Shavkat's main paths to victory. But Ian Garry is a very talented grappler, and the question is, can Shavkat get deep on any takedowns? Is he going to be able to fully secure any body locks? Is he going to be able to close the distance? Well, when we look at how they match up in the striking, this is where I think the gap between them is going to start really opening up. Now, Shavkat offensively is terrifying. I mean, this seems to be a running theme with him, but he just goes at you so hard. He puts so much pressure on you. I mean, this sequence from the Oliveira fight is all you really need to see to understand this. I mean, God, this knee to the body. I mean, I'm sure Oliveira was pissing blood for a solid week and a half after this fight. But with Shavkat, he really is 100% offense. I mean, he pretty much completely throws defense to the wind. He gets popped with jab.
That Jeff Neal, you know, these guys who aren't as... Jeff Neal's a great boxer, I'm going to be honest. I think he's one of the best boxers in the division. But back on track, these guys are... They've laid the blueprint to get to Shavkat. It's just Shavkat is a monster. He's built different. He's going to eat those shots. So you're going to have a clean body of work. But, I mean, you got Neil Magny landing clean shots, you know. Jeff Neal is a great striker, so I'm not going to act like Ian Garry is such a much better striker than Jeff Neal. But Ian Garry has more tools in his bag than Jeff Neal. He's longer than Jeff Neal. He's fast. He's precise, you know. So
Oliveira just stepped in, lands a right hand, and then just slides right back out of range.
And we've seen Shavkat Rakhmonov hurt before. Ian Garry can sit down on shots. He can land the precision shot that can hurt you.
Again, and look, Shavkat doesn't really care. I mean, he eats punches almost on purpose, but I think against somebody like Ian Garry, that might not be a good idea. I mean, Ian Garry's game relies on movement and distance management. I mean, that is what makes him so good. He's always standing right in front of you, doing all these little feints. You know, his little Israel Adesanya hip twitches, and he's just keeping you guessing while standing just outside of range. Then it's the variety of strikes that he'll throw. Jabs to the body, leg kicks. He'll mix in high kicks. You don't know what he's going to throw, and he uses that to find little openings. I mean, he really is an extremely technical striker. Now, of course, he has had moments of getting tagged and rocked. The famous one was the Song fight, but that came from Ian Garry on the...
He got comfortable. Ian Garry was rolling at this point, getting Song on to react to everything, landing whatever he wanted, and he got too comfortable. That's something that you cannot do against Shavkat, and I haven't seen Ian Garry get too comfortable yet. Actually, he was a little too comfortable against MVP. MVP blitzed him, caught him with a clean right hand at the end. He just wasn't expecting that kind of speed. I guess the speed was different when he got in there. So, but I wouldn't say he was too comfortable. I've actually never seen Ian Garry get too comfortable ever since this happened. You know, getting too comfortable will be like what Alex Pereira did against Israel Adesanya in the second fight, where he got too comfortable, he paid for it. You know, I don't think we see Ian Garry ever make this mistake ever again.
Outside, he was landing all sorts of strikes. Song was hanging back, wasn't throwing anything, and because of that, Ian got really comfortable.
Yeah,
he tried to step in the pocket with a body shot and then throw a same side punch upstairs. Now, though, you know, Ian Garry's game is not fighting in the pocket, clearly, and you know that is why this just didn't work for him. He doesn't have a tremendous amount of one-punch knockout power, so the counter came very easy for Song. But you know, Ian Garry, again, he doesn't typically fight like this. He's not the kind of guy to stand in the pocket with you. And apart from this one sequence, he typically doesn't do this. I mean, when guys try to pressure Garry, when guys try to close the distance on him, you know, he loves being on his bike. His footwork, his head movement is very, very good. And again, one of his primary skills is distance management, maintaining the proper amount of distance between himself and his opponent. So, of course, look, Shavkat needs to try to get in the pocket and land strikes. On the feet, that's what he needs to be going for. I just don't think his typical style of go at you nonstop, throw defense to the wind, and just put pressure upon pressure upon pressure on you is going to work against somebody like Ian, who's going to be on his bike, who's going to be constantly moving, just looking to land shots. I mean, look, this aspect of Shavkat's game, I love against Belal Muhammad. Belal Muhammad also wants to pressure you and get in your face. So the way Shavkat is just willing to stand in the pocket and try to hurt you constantly, I think is amazing against Belal, but I'm just not as confident it's going to work.
I disagree.
Well against somebody like Ian Garry, who is going to try to avoid being in the pocket, who wants to be on the outside just popping you and moving. I think that, look, it's possible Shavkat does eventually land a big shot and maybe hurts Ian, but I wouldn't rely on that.
Shavkat's not going to slow down. Shavkat's going to keep coming forward no matter what. Doesn't matter how much you're hitting him, how much you're tagging him. Because he believes, you know, it only takes one scramble or one moment in the fight, and it could be all over. This is a guy with 18 finishes. And he knows he has 18 finishes. And he's going to have 25 minutes to get a finish. This guy's not going to slow down.
That in Shavkat's corner, I think his path to victory is probably going to be from trying to take Ian down, push him up against the clinch, try to use his superior size and strength to get him down. I just, again, for the reasons listed earlier, I'm afraid he might not be able to do it. I do think this is a close fight. I think Shavkat just needs to land one shot clean or take him down a couple of times to get the victory. But I think I might be leaning towards an Ian Garry decision. I'm afraid Shavkat's lack of defense, him trying to pressure too much, is just going to give Garry the opportunity to jab him and move, leg kick and move, you know. And again, I want to repeat this. I do see paths to victory for both guys, but as of right now, might be leaning towards Ian Garry.
Shout out to MMA Shay. It was a good video. Great topics, great things discussed. Go ahead, hit that like button, comment, subscribe. Let me know who you got winning this fight. What's the X factor in this fight? And I'll see you guys in the next video. Like, comment, subscribe. Like I said, how about the algorithm? Please share this video. If you got an MMA fan, looking for somebody new to watch, looking for a little bit of a different style, oh my God, I appreciate you. You ain't got to go home, but you got to get up out of here. Yay!